Okay, so we have a phenomenal guest from Switzerland, just off the slopes today. Martin Baroch joining Andrew and myself with our normal topic about clutch. And this is really focused on is clutch born or is it grown? Does it go through the generations? And to use Martin's vast experience over a few decades now, Martin. So welcome. For the people, just give us a few minutes on your background, please, so they understand you.
Hello, Mark. Hello, everybody. It's my real pleasure to join you here. And well, I've been in tennis now for, terrible to say, almost 40 years. And I came to tennis a little bit late. I came to big tennis when I was 16, which is, of course, terribly late to become a world-class player. But I was very fortunate. I became member in the club Slavia Prague in former Czechoslovakia, which club a couple of years before I joined in 1982. And 1979, this club won the Champions League in tennis, which means being the best tennis club in all of Europe. And this club was home for players like Thomas Schmid, Pavel Složil, later Peter Korda was from this club. And within 3 years, 5 members of this club have been 120 in the world in ATP. So we have been a pretty good club. And I was the worst player joining the club, and I wanted to become good.
And you mentioned Peter Korda there. So tell us, because I know that you coach Peter Korda, and you've got what is it, Tennis 2.0? Is that what you train?
I call my system Tennis 3.0, which is kind of the developmental stage. Okay, so in technology, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. And Tennis 3.0 for me means tennis being played with modern equipment and modern knowledge. And this for me means using the body, because for years, many tennis players and, of course, many tennis coaches, unfortunately, focused at using the arms as the main tool. And this is what I call tennis 2.0, when the arms are dominating the shots. And tennis 3.0 is for me when the tennis shots are being dominated by the energy coming from the body.
Perfect. Perfect. Is that something you train Peter Korda in?
Peter Korda is a very interesting story, because I met Peter Korda when I joined the club in 1982. Back then he was 14 years old, I was 16, and we got to know each other, and I observed how he was growing. He was coached by his father, late Peter Korda Sr., who was very strict in developing his technique. And what's very important, and this is what makes you win the big matches in the end, in my opinion, that his control of the ball is superior. This was, what I was able to observe with Peter when he was 14, 15.
And they've been, control of the ball?
Control the ball.
Okay.
The control of the ball, the placement of the ball, what he hits, was always the utmost importance. It was not like hit like crazy, hit hard. Control it. Okay. Get it over 30 times, get it over 50 times.
Do you think? Because when pressure and tension comes, unless that's grained in, I presume technique breaks down.
Absolutely. When pressure comes, you come to the subconscious situation, to subconscious information or the subconscious systems which are in your brain. And when in the subconscious, system of your brain are some bad techniques, you of course will bring them up to the light. And
so
that's
what works in
help.
practice doesn't work in matches.
Look, there is a saying, practice makes perfect. But it's not true. I would say perfect practice makes perfect, because practice makes just permanent.
Yes, indeed.
And what you practice, this is what you get.
We are of like minds. Andrew, talk about intergenerational, again, whether champions are born or whether they're grown.
Well, you've got a great example with Peter Korda. You've got his son and everything would be flowing on from that, would it?
Look, Peter Korda, he is married together. The mother of the children is Regina Reichertova, who also herself was top third in the world. They've been both parents very good players. And they have 3 children. They have 2 daughters and son. The oldest daughter was top 20 in golf. The middle child, the second daughter, younger daughter, she is currently #1 in the world in golf and Olympic champion. and Sebastian is now top 20 in men's tennis. So it's immensely successful sports family.
Is that
and I think
do you think they're born or environment or training or what?
both. It's a combination. Of course, you have to have the good genes. When you don't have the good genes and when you don't have the good body with, long arms, long legs, reasonable coordination, it will be difficult. But the environment makes it or breaks it. And I think the focus that you do the things right and to put into the brains of your children to do the things right is the decision maker.
I can imagine them growing up at the breakfast table on the knee of their father, and just through conversations and the environment, winners create winners in thought and word and deed. I can imagine that. Andrew, you were nodding. What's your take?
Look, I'm just listening to this as this is conditioning agents, environments where you can get the best out of anyone if you put them in, with the right challenges.
Martin, what's your take, man?
Look, absolutely. I've been around. I was able to observe growing up of couple champions. I was able to observe, for example, how Martina Hingis was developed by her mother to a degree. And I saw it developing certain skiing champions as well, because I was involved in skiing in the past. And for me, the most important thing is that when you want to develop a champion, you have to teach them from the youngest age to do the things right. When you just say, oh, it's fun, they hit the fence, oh, they have fun, it's not the way how we develop champions. Champions are the people who want to be perfect. And they do everything what it takes to become perfect.
And they learn that from their parents or parent.
Of course, it's developed by the parents, by the environment they are growing in. Some children might get it by themselves. You have sometimes cases like, let's say, take Pelé, the phenomenal football player. He was from a relatively poor environment and he wanted to be perfect. For some of the kids, let's say in football, it's very often the case, they just see the stars and they see, oh, I love doing that. I would like to be there. So have motivation, self-motivation. But in today's environment, and especially in the developed countries, I think the environment which is being created by the parents and by the environment around the kids makes it or breaks it.
You mentioned Martina Hingis. Andrew, you got anything to say on Martina Hingis? Because she was, a hero or heroine.
Martina Hingis had, her mother, a great supporter and coach. And history shows, what a champion. And could play on any surface with that sort of style, which was, you have to find the game that suits you as well. And, that's all part of finding how your whole strategy works, which is good.
Yeah. Any tips, Martin, on Martina, how she became champion rather than up?
What it all starts with, because when you see today, the biggest issue, most of the players just react to the situations. And when you like to be a very successful, and tennis is a great example of that, you can't be just somebody who reacts. You have to create situations. And most of the players, they only mentally react to the ball when the ball is flying to them. Very good players from the young age have been taught to observe the opponent, react to the moves of the opponent. You have to be great in anticipation. And when you look at both biggest Swiss tennis stars, being it Martina Hingis or Roger Federer, they have been great to a big degree because they have been fantastic in anticipation. And anticipation makes your preparation much faster and makes you play faster, more successful games.
So if anticipation is the key skill, which I agree with, anticipation comes from the eyes or mental capacity to convert that information to action or patterns. Where do you get anticipation from?
From a mental discipline. Because when you like to be very good in something, you have to be mentally engaged fully. And when you compare, let's say, the average players, even on the tour, and the best players, one of the biggest differences is the attention span for the given stroke. The not so good players, they react late, and they are mentally done early. The best players react mentally much earlier to the situation, and they stay much longer with the situation. And the length of the attention span for each given stroke is actually one of the big, let's say, stones which are developing the building of a great game.
Yeah, I can understand that, particularly on decisive points. So how do you teach or how do you train, apart from anticipation, this long mental state, this long mental focus?
Well, of course, people are different, but I think you have to develop from the young age with the players the joy of being in control. Joy, I am smarter, I can read the opponent. I have fun creating the situation. And, like in the society, most people are consumers and the successful people are creators. I think you have heard these terms before. And the best players and the best skiers, or let's say on the other side, our best business people are the creators. People who just consume and are lucky that they can consume, they are not really successful. They might be successful when they get fantastic environment, when they inherit a lot of money, whatever, then consume makes you look good. But when you like to build something, you have to be creator, and you have to be creative to become a great tennis player.
We're touching on some great stuff, Martin, because this, I would argue, is rarely coached unless you're a really good coach. Curiosity, anticipation, mental strength, innovation. That doesn't equate to unit turn, swing path, pat the dog, and all the rest of it. Andrew?
Yeah, you've got patterns of play, and nearly every player is taught patterns of play. So if I hit it deep to your backhand, you might put up a lob, you might put what options. But what Martin's talking about is you prepare scenarios, and when this happens, this is what the general response is. But here are a few other options. And to be able to be creative on the court, let's think of a few of those options and outsmart your opponent, which is good. And that can be trained. Every time you're on court, there's an opportunity.
Martin, you're looking very studious.
Of course, it can be and has to be trained. But, I will say something what many people might not like to hear. But tennis academies, in a broad sense, are not in business of developing players. They are in business of making money. And most of the academies they create or they develop, sorry to say that, the brain dead players, because they do something, like you have to do this all the time the same. But it doesn't make players at the highest level. It develops average players. When you like to have a great player, he or she needs to be engaged, not to be like, okay, I am going to do 100 forehands, I'm going to do 25 backhands, whatever. I have to read the ball. I have to always, have new situation. And general, of course, when you learn the technique, when you teach the technique, the player, you need to do repetitions. Let's say you do 24 hands, you do 54 hands. But once the technique is good, was established, the technical pattern, you have to practice in combinations all the time. And not combinations which are fully preset, but combinations which have the player to think, to react, to choose. And this is very often not being done, or not being done as it should be done.
I love your passion, Martin, and I agree with every word. So apart from academies and aspiring pros, how can amateur competitive tennis players in a normal club, how can they train themselves to be clutch at their age and level?
Look, we do it actually, I work with players of all ages, and I have a lot of, let's say, very established, very successful business people. Most of my clients are alpha people. People, I challenge people. So people who just want to hit a couple balls don't come to see me. But people who are used to be successful, who want to do something, who do something in their careers, who are very successful, when they come to tennis, they also want to be successful. That's, their DNA. And, in general, we practice with people who take it seriously, always in the point environment. So let's say we practice forehand, but we practice forehand for points. And you can have playing with the foam ball in the service boxes. You can play it for points. And when you start playing for points, people realize that some things work, they win the points, or they are successful, some things don't work. And this is, how you can do it, and at every age, at every skill level.
Yeah, and you can train the scoring systems to have a handicap or put extra pressure on. It doesn't always have to be equal, obviously. Andrew, what's your take on this, particularly for amateur
Actually,
competitive tennis players?
well, you've got a match that just happened, Kokkinakis versus Etchenevi. And Etchenevi didn't win and won 212 points, where Kokkinakis only won 208. So it was that close, but it was the key point that you're both talking about. The key point was the factor that made Kokkinakis win, and there was like an energy with the Aussies. This is the Adelaide International leading into the Australian Open, and that energy gave him extra powers in a way. He was focused, but the other guy, there was no breaking between the two of them. You couldn't tell who was going to win, but it was like a special energy at the end to just push him over and win the tournament.
Okay, so isn't this the thing with amateur tennis players around the world, is that they're frightened and don't know how to close out. If they've got match point or they start doing crazy things that they've never trained, thinking that will surprise the opponent. So I'm really interested on kind of one thing for people to take away that they go, aha, yes, I can train that, and hence my clutch skills will improve. Martin, what should they take away? One thing.
One thing, try to make in the practices you do practically everything for points. Just hitting the balls without points, it doesn't count. When you are established player at your level, playing without points, it doesn't make you better. So create situation. You don't need to play full matches. Play forehands grass court for points. Play in the small boxes for points. Play serve and return for points. You just need to get used to the environment.
Very good.
And hitting just ball.
Let me interrupt you just a second, because there is a big difference between ball striking and playing match tennis, which is what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And good players they have one quality. They don't want to win as a first thing. They hate to lose. And hating to lose is the biggest driver to become really successful.
Yep. Probably the last question, and for you both, what's the balance between outcome, hating to lose, and being in the present moment process so that the outcome becomes what the outcome is?
That's a great question, Mark. When you are in present focus, when you are engaged, this is that you want to really make it to your ass, that it works for you. When you just want to win, then you make mistakes. When you want to control, and hating to lose means maintaining control. And maintaining control of the situation makes you win in the end, if I may express it this way.
So go back to my favorite, which is Mr. Novak Djokovic, and him taking his arch enemy for many years on the opposite side of the net into his camp. Again, Martin and Andrew, your take on Djokovic, control, and his seeming never ceasing curiosity to get 1% better in every aspects. And clearly he still has joy and love for the game as well, which is what you talked about earlier.
I have enormous respect of Novak Djokovic. For me, he is probably for sure the best player in my lifetime. And we have to understand, when we talk about, let's say, Federer was amazing, but he was enormous talent. He was genius. Djokovic is not enormous genius. He is the guy like you and me. And he just wanted to be perfect. He did everything to become perfect. And two kind of greatest moments of his career, I would consider the win at the US Open 2023. If you remember the second set against Medvedev, It was the best tennis I have seen in my life. And for example, he was not a serve and volley player. In this particular second set of the finals of the US Open 2023, he went to the net 23 times in one set.
Wow.
And you know how many points he made? 21.
Oh, what a guess.
And it was absolutely amazing. And when he had the set point against him in this second set, he missed. It was 30-40, set point Medvedev. And physically, he didn't look very good at that moment. Medvedev was kind of above him physically. And at this moment, he missed the first serve. He played the second serve, top spin down the tee, came to the net, and made winning volley. That's something absolutely amazing. And
yeah.
And we don't train serve and volley or get to the net these days, do we? At amateur level or pro level. Andrew?
You've got to come in on the right shot. So, and he backed himself with a second serve down the tee. That covers your angles. But it also has to be dominating serve. And anything wide, too hard these days, unless you've got a booming serve and they're nearly reacting to your serve instead of dictating the serve. So some of the net players can really get those angles and open up the court. But what a great example. And you can see anyone who can get to the net, if you're there at the wrong time, you're a sitting duck these days.
But if you get to the net, there are more points to be won. My last question to you both, and Martin, you got into it with playing every shot for points in your practice or training session, as we'd like to call it. So this is about pressure conditioning, yes? What's your take on pressure?
Pressure is a privilege. It was said by Billie Jean King, and I definitely like that. And pressure is, as I said, privilege, and it's actually what we like to have. This is when it makes really fun. And people say, oh, it's so much pressure, it stresses me. No, it should be the joy. You know, I am here, it's the thrill of the match to have situations like that.
Just so good. And if you train it as you are training it in practice and training, then come a match, it's your friend. And it's like, oh, my friend's come. Good. Whereas
exactly, Mark.
Yes.
This is how I see that.
The positive. And always let, you know, when your students sort of say, I do feel the pressure, you can even give them the example of, just remember, pressure is what turns coal into a diamond. And are you up to it? Yep.
Absolutely.
My forces friends say pressure is a symptom of an untrained mind.
Yes.
Yes, very well said.
Okay.
Yes.
Look, Martin, this has been a phenomenal. I just loved it. Everything you said. Andrew, thank you for your time and your input as well. Anything to sign off with Martin, whether it Korda or Hingis or Djokovic? Is there's one thing for people to take away?
Look, when you train right, it will end up right for you. This is the best chance. And, you know, all the people who became really successful, they did train right and they enjoyed being in control. This is, you know, what I have seen.
Oh, beautiful. Being in control and loved being in control. And as you clearly said, hitting balls and ball striking needs to be built in so you trust it. But that's only the entrance way into the training. It's not the training.
It's the principle, you know, when you like to be good in anything, when you drive car, when you fly planes, when you are a surgeon, when you do it out of control, disaster is happening. And the same is on the court. When you just hit somehow, disaster is happening. And when you do it right, this is the best chance to be successful.
At what stage do you go from conscious training to instinctive? I keep saying I've got one question and then you say something and I have a question.
Look, the instinctive should be there right from the beginning.
Okay.
And you can train using flow as well. So you keep training and training until it becomes automatic that you respond in this way. But creative responses are giving scenarios and playing points. Play these points under pressure. And what are your options? And can you do it? So they're all things that can be trained, and clutch is a perfect example of how you can do that.
Guys, look, thank you. So me for one, I've had such a stimulating and a fun conversation. So Martin, thank you. And Andrew, as ever, thanks for being sidekick and partner.
Mark, thank
And
you for having me. Andrew, great talking with you and seeing you, gentlemen, and enjoy everything you are doing. It's great to have people like you who are interested in the depth of the game.